A live look, meanwhile, at Florida, where would-be assassin Ryan Routh was just in court for his alleged attempt on President Trump's life. Routh was apprehended at the Trump National Golf Course, you'll remember, in West Palm Beach, where officials say he was waiting for the then presidential candidate with a rifle. For more on this, let's bring in Jonathan Turley, a Fox News contributor and constitutional law professor. What do we need to know about all this? Jonathan, welcome.
Well, this is a curious defense case because the defense has not been forthcoming with evidence and positions on their side. The most notable thing is that Routh has not indicated through counsel that he is going to invoke any type of insanity defense. That's a long delay in raising such a defense. You just can't throw that out just before trial. You have to lay the groundwork with the court. Part of the problem may be that he makes a weak case on the facts for an insanity defense because he was functionally there at the scene. He decided to flee, indicating he knew that he was doing something wrong and that he was at risk of being apprehended. He was there for a month in the area. There seems to be a lot of planning that went into it. All of those things cut against the insanity defense. And then many of these charges are pretty straightforward, you know, whether he had these weapons, whether he assaulted a Secret Service agent. Those are things that give you much less room for a defense.
So President Trump was asked about this by our Peter Doocy in the Oval Office, why don't we know more information, not just about Routh, but about the Butler shooter as well. Here's what the president said in response to the question about Routh. Listen here.
That's a lot of cell phones, and a couple of them had some strange markings on them. So, yeah, I want to find out, and I would be willing to release it. I mean, maybe there's a reason that we shouldn't, so I don't want to get too far ahead of my skis, but yeah, I would be very willing to release that.
So what he was referring to there was the evidence that the FBI has in its possession, including 3,000 photos, 18 phones in total. The president said, I don't have that many phones. Why would he have that many phones? 5 storage disks, 3 computers, 3 tablets. You would think, Professor, there could potentially be a treasure trove of information about what led up to this that's on those devices, yet we haven't heard much.
Right. This is not like past assassins. You know, you can put them in sort of groups of past assassins or attempted assassins of presidents. Many of them are coming directly from the United States. They're sometimes unbalanced, like Squeaky Fromme, and others that are coming from sort of cult-like situations. This one has a lot of international ties in the sense that he was over in Ukraine. He sort of fashioned himself as sort of a global player in this. He wrote about his desire to see Trump killed by Iran. All of that raises obvious flags for the FBI that this is just not a Hinckley that goes after Ronald Reagan because of a delusion with a movie star. This guy seems to have a sort of global identity and awareness to him that is always going to concern American intelligence.
You know, the president suggested that he's going to release a report on these 2 assassination attempts for the American public to see soon. What do you expect from that?
You know, one of the most interesting aspects of the developing legacy of President Trump has been the transparency aspects. I think the media has begrudgingly acknowledged that they went from a president who often had literally a line of staff preventing media from getting close to him, rarely ever doing a sit-down interview, certainly not with a neutral media outlet. This president is all in. I mean, it's almost total access, total transparency. They've done that with Doge. They've done that in a lot of other respects. And he is fulfilling that aspect, which I find fascinating, because every president, like Obama, came in saying, I'm going to be the most transparent ever, and that didn't exactly work out.
So let me ask you about this, because I know that this is something that interests you greatly. You actually wrote about it. And this was the censure of Congressman Al Green yesterday, in which the disruption that occurred Tuesday night at the joint address continued during his censure. And that was when a lot of Democrats joined him in the well of the House, and they were singing "We Shall Overcome" while he was being censured. Listen to part of the scene here.
And that Representative Al Green be censured with public reading of this resolution by the Speaker. The House had come to order. The House had come to order.
Well, despite the disturbance, the Speaker insists that the censure did go through. You say that 80% of the public opposed what Green did on Tuesday night, yet only 5% of Democrats voted for that censure.
Right. This disconnect is glaring. And the question is, what is the leadership doing here? They're turning this into a parody rather than a party. You have these people who respond to a censure for disrupting the House by disrupting the House with a protest in the well, a protest in favor of conduct that the vast majority of Americans really find disgraceful. And so they have cut themselves adrift, and they're no longer connected, I think, to the majority in this country. This is the problem when you have your party being directed by the most extreme 25% of the party. You have moments like this one. But I got to tell you, I find this really terribly depressing. You know, I went to that house when I was a 15-year-old page, and I revered it. I revered the people in it on both parties. And when I was a page, this would have been a unanimous vote. There were things you couldn't do, things beyond the pale, things that went beyond the rage, that you look to the institution and to each other to maintain. We have come a very dangerous distance from that point.
Jonathan Turley, always a pleasure. Thank you very much for joining us.